more I learn about how the U.S. government works, how the Fed works, how the Treasury Department works, how the IRS it works, and everyone in between, and how they're all running like the biggest Ponzi scheme there is. U.S. just seems to run it better than most other countries right now, which is why the U.S. dollar is stronger. But if you look at how this operates in every country that has a central bank, that has monetary policy, that has deficit and has bonds, I mean, it's all run the same way. Every country has the same system, and it's really bad system. Really, really bad. And that brings me to my point, Bitcoin. This brings me to my point, Bitcoin, because the more you learn about how money really works, the more you really think, why are we participating in this game? We really need to get out. We really do. It's an unsustainable system. There's no way you can have a country that continues to be in deficit and more in deficit and more in deficit and think that they never have to pay it back. The debt and just the interest alone eventually will be so crushing. You know, it's really demoralizing if you learn about it. But brings me to my point. This is why there is a huge case for Bitcoin. Mike Novogratz knows it. Michael Saylor knows it. Everyone that really pays attention and kind of understands realizes that we need something better. And we already have something better, Bitcoin. Okay? Bitcoin doesn't go through all this stuff. It doesn't. It's already programmed, it's governed by code, right? There's no bad actor that could come in and say, oh, we're just going to inflate it by 40% within the next 2 years. Things like that doesn't happen. So that is the reason why I remain bullish on Bitcoin, and I remain, my thesis for basically everyone around the world is to really learn about money and then truly understand why you want to be in Bitcoin. Besides making money with Bitcoin and besides having the greatest decentralized network that we have, but the other huge reason is money itself, the system, is really broken. And that's why we need to turn to something better like Bitcoin. All right. So let me remind you guys and give you an alternative, and that is Bitcoin. Rather than try to put it into treasury notes and bonds, you may want to look at Bitcoin, and most of you guys already do, but look at Bitcoin's inflation rate. Unlike the inflation rate of the US, which is at 8.2%, unlike the inflation rate of the UK is at 9.9%, unlike the inflation rate of the Eurozone, which is 9.6%, and the inflation rate of other countries around the world, which are in double digits and higher. Bitcoin's inflation rate is only around 1.71 right now. And that 1.71 will get cut in half to 0.86 by 2024. And it keeps getting cut in half because that is what the halving event does. And it's programmed. We know it's coming. It doesn't change its date. It's not like anyone can flip a switch and say, okay, let's just increase the inflation by 5% this year. No, it can't happen. You don't have central banks or governments that can apply monetary policy or quantitative easing or tightening and all the other stuff that they do. Bitcoin is set, controlled by code, controlled by the people, non-sovereign. You don't have to worry about leaders or incompetent decisions. This is why I do believe more and more people need to understand what Bitcoin is all about. There's so many aspects to Bitcoin that people don't quite understand. And if you do understand, then you realize, well, why would I not be holding on to Bitcoin? And here's another visual in terms of how many Bitcoins get produced or found within a block. Before, in 2011, it was about 50 per block. Then in 2015, it's 25. Then starting from 2017, And going all the way up to 2020, it's only 12.5, and currently right now it's 6.3. And like I said, after the next halving event, you're only going to have 3.15 come out per block. And that 3.15 will get cut down to 1.5. Bitcoin, sorry, I got cut off there, so I had to stop myself. Bitcoin has a finite supply, cannot inflate infinitely like the dollar, like the euro, like the yen, like any other currency out there. There's no set supply. They are infinite, and you can always you can make more, or you can always find more. So even assets like gold, you could find more. You can't create more Bitcoin. Whenever there is a fork, that is no longer Bitcoin. That becomes an altcoin. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. So that's the important thing. I think the naysayers will always say, well, yeah, you could just fork off Bitcoin and create more. No, because if you fork it off, it's not Bitcoin. It's an altcoin. So I do believe more and more people around the world, slowly but surely, is paying attention and truly understand what Bitcoin is all about. And I'm not only talking about the inflation aspect, but not even decentralized network aspect. And that's a huge piece, right? But more and more people are starting to understand, starting to pay attention what the governments around the world are doing, and it's unsustainable. It's unsustainable if, like, I'm not the most expert in this, but learning about how the U.S. government works, how there's a massive deficit and how there's a deficit every single year, and how we can only afford to pay interest and not even to pay off any of the debt that we have, and how rolls and rolls and rolls with new treasury notes and bonds being issued. Well, it just sounds like a giant mess that one day will collapse. And when it does, people will turn to something better. Probably Bitcoin at that point. It might not be anytime soon, but eventually people are coming to realize we need something better, and that is Bitcoin. Right? And as for some other metrics, some good stuff in terms of why it is a good time to buy, besides everything I've just said, well, there's still a lot of models and indicators like this one, which is a pretty bullish one. This is the 50 weekly moving average crossing below the 100 weekly moving average. And you can see that the two times before that has happened in 2015 and 2019. When that happened, that was actually a pretty good buy point, because Bitcoin shortly after rallied hard and went on multi-year rallies afterwards. So we have just crossed through there. So that's a pretty good bullish indicator. And here's another one that is measuring short-term holders and long-term holders. I'm not exactly sure the criteria for this, but it shows pretty much the same thing. The last two times it happened, 2015, 2019, and it just happened right now in 2022. So again, two models that show, hey, if you're thinking about getting Bitcoin, this is the perfect time to do so, and could be a really good time to stock up before the collapse of all these currencies around the world. If you're looking to buy Bitcoin and crypto for the first time and you don't know where to get started, head over to CryptosRus.com and click on the best exchange guide. Within, you'll find a list of exchanges that I recommend and some that I use on a daily basis. Head over to CryptosRus.com or utilize the links in the description of this video.